And now, from Raw and SmackDown to premium live events and retro rewinds, this is WrestleVision.
Hello everyone and welcome to WrestleVision. My name is Luke and this is the show where we take a look at everything happening in WWE, from Raw and SmackDown to premium live events, creative decisions and all the little details that make wrestling so good. So let's get into it, and today I want to talk about Monday Night Raw predictions, Saturday Night Main Event predictions, SummerSlam predictions. I know that's a while away yet, but there's plenty to talk about. Obviously with the Monday Night Raw that's coming up, well, it'll be tonight. It's currently the 5th and it goes out on the 6th, so it'll be 1 a.m. UK time for us over here, unfortunately, which is, I never seem to get to watch it on the morning of. Obviously, I work full time, so I have to go to work. But there might be a special circumstance tonight. If anybody's following the World Cup, you'll know that England are playing at 1 a.m. So I might very well start for that, and I might have Raw sitting on my phone, or vice versa. We'll see how we go. But yeah, I just wanted to come on and talk about Monday Night Raw and sort of predictions for the main picture, especially involving Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. And Adam Pearce has actually dubbed this episode of Monday Night Raw Championship Monday, and that is because there's going to be 3 major title defenses on the schedule. Now, as was previously announced this past Friday night, Sami Zayn will be defending his newly won WWE Championship against Cody Rhodes, and that kind of gives us a lot of speculation as to the pathway to Saturday night's main event, which is more like a bus stop, and then to SummerSlam, which is our eventual big 4 of the summer. And I've got a few predictions of myself about how we're going to get there. But first, let's talk about the predictions Monday Night Raw that will be coming to us from Chicago, which is interesting because I do think that we're going to get a returning CM Punk, and I think that this will play into the bigger story with the WWE Championship, including Sami and Cody leading all the way up to SummerSlam. That's my prediction. Now, I've heard all the speculation and all the stories online, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, and it's nice because we all have different ideas. Again, some opinions aren't going to be as popular as others, and that's fine. But I'm going to still put my own opinion out there as to what I believe is going to happen for the next couple of weeks, like I say, leading up to SummerSlam. But we'll start off with Raw. And our predicted card so far for Raw is Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. We've got Sol Ruca versus Raquel Rodriguez for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship. I can't see Raquel Rodriguez winning this. Sol Ruca, I think, will retain. But just while we're on this championship and on this particular segment of the show, this is what annoys me about the booking of WWE. Becoming a champion means time off, when in actual fact, it should mean the complete opposite. Sol Ruca won the championship, and we haven't really seen her since. And it bugs me. It's like, what do they do with these champions? Do they put them up in these mansions somewhere and hide them away and say, well, you know, you've done the hard part now, so you can just sit back and relax. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they should be on the show every week. These are your faces of the company. That's the reason you're putting the championships on these people, so they can be featured on the show every week and they can represent the belt, which represents the company, which is why you have your branding all over the belts. If you didn't want them to be seen, then you wouldn't put as much time into freaking designing them. I know that's a really silly thing to say, but that is the black and white of it. If you've got champions, feature them heavily in storylines. It's not like we're sitting here saying that Sol Ruca done this really, really long program and put loads and loads of hard work into winning this championship. Like, don't get me wrong, she's put hard work to get to where she is today. I understand that. But what I'm trying to get at is the storyline itself with Becky wasn't super long. She could have just bounced back straight away, and we could have had programs set up for her, but we haven't. We just haven't really seen her. So, yeah, I don't think Raquel Rodriguez is going to win this one. I've got Sol Ruca retaining here. Judgment Day for me, it has been going on for very long now. I kind of feel like that anyone who's in a match with Judgment Day is just to keep both parties busy. You don't need to do that. At this point, I think we could probably disband the Judgment Day. Let Liv do her thing. Let Raquel do her thing. I think by this point, she's strong enough. And I really like Raquel Rodriguez. I think she's strong enough to stand on her own 2 feet now without the backing of the Judgment Day, that she can just go off into the women's division and do what she needs to do. You can put belts on her, because I think that she has worked hard for them, and she's got a lot better over the last few years at doing that, at standing on her own 2 feet and representing herself without needing the Judgment Day around her. As I say, Liv's got the belt. She can do it on her own and always has been able to anyway, so she doesn't really need the Judgment Day. I know that she's kind of the front and centre of it, but to me, I think that she could just go off and do her own thing and be her own character now. Same with Dom. I think that Dom had his opportunity when he won the IC title, and then he had that match with John Cena, and I felt like that we were really reaching like a peak for Dom Mysterio. We were getting to a point where we're like, right, this guy's going to break out into the main event scene now, and he might drop the IC title and he'll go after the bigger championships, WWE World Heavyweight Championship. That didn't really happen because they acquired AAA all within that kind of timeline. And he obviously went over there to become the best luchador of all time, or whatever it is that he says. And now he's got the AAA championship. So fair play to him. He's held on to it for long enough. But as I said in the last episode, this kind of falls back into that pattern where you've got a company, and I know it's slightly different. Now, maybe I didn't touch on that in the last one, and I know you guys know that, but just to be clear for anyone who doesn't, that AAA was acquired by WWE, and TNA is its own thing, and they just basically had a partnership. So essentially, AAA is owned by WWE, and it's a little bit different. If you go onto the WWE website, you can see that some of the superstars on there have the logo of either SmackDown or Raw, but then also the AAA logo behind them, where they're kind of sharing these stars between two companies, which is fine. I mean, it's great for AAA because I think that the blending of the two companies does a lot for AAA, and that might be quite contradictory based on what I said in the last episode, where I said that, AAA stars are getting squashed underneath WWE stars, basically because they're winning their championships. They win all their matches. But you do get the exposure of the AAA stars on the bigger show, like we just had Vikingo and Rey Fenix, which I really enjoyed. So, but yeah, back to the women's championship match. I will do that. I will go on tangents, guys. Every week I'm probably going to do it. So just be prepared for that. But there's always plenty to talk about. So that's why I do it. But yeah, I see Raquel Rodriguez losing this one, unfortunately. Sol Ruca to retain. Moving on, we have the Street Profits putting their titles up against The Vision. Now, I got Street Profits retaining. The Vision to me is done. It's dead in the water. I like what they were trying to do with it when it first started, and it was its strongest, obviously, when it had Seth at the helm. When Seth got injured, walked away, and they kind of rebranded it with Braun and Bronson, brought Logan and Austin in. It was okay. It wasn't as strong, because ultimately, even Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed aren't big enough yet to lead the Vision forward. And I honestly thought that the Vision was going to be like this revolutionary, excuse the pun, this revolutionary faction that were going to win everything. I thought you're going to have an IC championship in there, a US championship, World Heavyweight Championship, maybe a couple of tag team championships in there. I don't know. I honestly thought, and I think that we all did, think that they were going to be like Evolution, the new iteration of Evolution. And unfortunately, with Bronson Reed getting injured, tearing his, what was it? He tore his bicep or something. Obviously, Logan then got injured, not in order, obviously. Bron Breakker had the hernia, I think, in his stomach, and it all just fell apart. And with them dropping the titles, this is Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker, who unfortunately has had to follow these storylines. And in following these storylines, it's kind of diminished his character a little bit. I felt like that a year ago, you could look at Bron Breakker and say, this guy's going to be a world champion. I mean, God, there was actually a moment where he had Seth's belt on his shoulder, and Bronson Reed was taking OTC's trainers, and they were in a position to take over. And I think that was probably the plan. Unfortunately, as I said, because of the injuries, we had to take a different direction, and we lost people. And then we had the tag match with Bron Breakker, and they just lost it straight away, him and Austin Theory. So I think that unfortunately Bron Breakker is not in a picture now because of the injuries that have happened to the Vision. And I think the Vision has suffered for that as well. And I don't see the Vision winning this at all. I think the Street Profits are the hot business right now, essentially. But I will say, as the tag team division goes, the Street Profits kind of seem on their own at the moment. Who's challenging them? Who's there? Off the top of my head, is very little in the pool of actual tag teams to take away from the Street Profits. So, and it's funny because even though we've lost the MFTs now, I feel like that this is going to become the new Vortex. Street Profits in the Vision, for whatever reason, to keep the Vision alive. And I know that they're probably monitoring the progress of your Bronson Reeds to see how long it will take him to come back. Can they keep this going until Bronson Reed is cleared to wrestle again? I don't know the answer to that. But I think that the Vision is pretty much dead in the water at this point. And I don't see them picking the win up here at all. I think the Street Profits will win. Apparently Seth Rollins will be kicking off the show, following on from the story of him and Roman Reigns, which I really, really enjoyed. I said this in the SmackDown review episode. I really, really enjoyed the promo that he gave, and he brought us right up to speed, put us right in that picture. Yeah, I just thought it was a worldie of a promo. I really, really enjoyed it. And for me, I've always enjoyed Seth Rollins. I don't think he's the best ever, but after that promo, newfound respect. And it hasn't just come from that promo, but it just reminded me that Seth is an absolute powerhouse to deal with. And yeah, I'm looking forward to how this pans out. And this kind of blends a little bit with the storyline with Sami and Cody. And obviously Jay is the catalyst there. We have the bloodline story happening. And then we also kind of have this Shield-esque kind of story happening with Seth and Roman. A lot of rumours and things saying about Jon Moxley coming back or Mox being a part of it. I don't know. As I said, I don't watch AEW, so I don't know how he's tied up contractually or if he'd ever even come back to WWE. I mean, it would be amazing to see the Shield again, but let's just say for now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they were leaning on those storylines to create just the tension and the stakes essentially for Roman versus Seth. But you can guarantee a brilliant match there regardless. When I was talking about the blending of the storylines and it involving Sami and Cody, obviously I'm talking about Jay being on the show on SmackDown and having the number one contenders match. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that, Jay could very well be involved in the Saturday night's main event picture or the SummerSlam picture. Personally, I don't see that. I don't see that happening one bit. I think that, as I said in SmackDown review, I think that Jay will go back into the Usos tag division now. And that is kind of where maybe we get the Street Profits sort of defending their titles. And we might have like a vortex there of the Vision, the Street Profits and the Usos, which is fine. I think the Usos will dominate if they do go back into the tag team division for a long time. But Street Profits are a strong tag team. So I wouldn't mind seeing that, on and off for a while. And again, because of the links between the Street Profits and Seth Rollins, there then creates almost like your four pillars. You've got Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, Jay and the Usos. Then you've got the Street Profits and the ties to Seth. And there's like a whole cluster of things that could happen there in the foreseeable. And, I'm not going to predict every single storyline because ultimately I think that when we predict storylines, we tend to get ourselves excited. And I know I've predicted a few tonight. I've just predicted a few different decisions that I think that might happen. And ironically, I'm saying that, and I opened the show with saying that, I've got a road to SummerSlam. So maybe I'll just eat my words on that one. But what I'm trying to get at is that I air caution to these predictions because WWE tend to not give us what we want. They kind of go down this generic route of doing the safe option, unfortunately. And ironically, Sami Zayn, I don't think is the safe option. But I think we'll get into this SummerSlam prediction in a bit, and we'll see where we go with that. Also, just as well with the storylines, a lot of people talking about AI being involved and these AI storylines and things like that. I think that's totally plausible. We've seen the old SummerSlam Minnesota, which was an absolute joke. Like, how have you missed that? This billion-dollar company and missing these stupid little errors in the presentation of one of the biggest shows of the year. It is a total joke. I don't even know why they need to use AI. People like me, people like you, we don't need to use it in day-to-day life. I don't use any of it on this show. I don't use any of it in the presentation, in the logos. That's all created by me. If you go on the Instagram, there isn't any AI at all. And I understand that it can help in areas similar to this. If you've got a small show, if you've got a small Instagram page, I've got no issue with using AI. But when you have as much money as the WWE have, I don't think you need to be using AI. I think that you just hire people, artists that can do work. And then also we stop this generic logo look that we have in the WWE now. Everything's come down a peg. Everything's gone up in the advertisement, but it's come down in the sense of the presentation. The stages don't look as good anymore. And now they're even getting sloppy with their on-screen productions and their video packages. As we know, we saw the Zarya and Sol Ruca video package a few months ago that was basically all AI. So, it does bug me because I think you just don't need to be doing it. You have the money sitting right there. But hey, look, I guess TKO are a greedy bunch of motherfuckers. So there we go. But moving on from that storyline, finally, the last piece of information that we have is that Oba Femi will address his decision to face Brock Lesnar inside Hell in a Cell. And I think this might center around the fact that he has essentially relinquished his chance for a title match in favour of facing Brock Lesnar inside the Hell in the Cell at SummerSlam. And I think a lot of people had problems with this because they were like, why would you just give that up? What is the point of having the King of the Ring and having Oba Femi win the King of the Ring to then just relinquish that title opportunity and go and face Brock Lesnar instead? And I've heard lots of rumours about being title opportunities for Oba Femi over 2 nights of SummerSlam, defeating Brock in the first night and then going on to face, say, Roman in the second night. And it's not unheard of. We've done it before over the course of one night. I think Daniel Bryan did it back in the day. He fought Triple H and then beat Randy and Batista, I think, for the title. So it's not unheard of. But yeah, do I think that will happen? I'm not too sure. I think that Seth and Roman will have their match, and I think maybe the way that they're building it is that Roman will retain. I think that will happen, and they'll put sort of an end to that. Maybe they'll even become allies after that. I don't know. But I don't know if Oba Femi will go for a title. I guess we're going to find out on Monday Night Raw when he addresses the decision that he's made. But let's just move on now to the Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes match. Obviously, I haven't really spoken about it too much, but I did want to just go over my thoughts on what I think could happen at Monday Night Raw, Saturday night's main event, and SummerSlam, setting us up for a possible story, maybe a possible heel turn by somebody, and the return of CM Punk, essentially. So Monday Night Raw tomorrow, we have the Sami Zayn versus Cody Rhodes match. I think that this match will end in a no contest. And I think what will happen is that CM Punk will return and he will interrupt this match. I think that Sami will retain the title. I don't see him losing it this early. And I read something, I think it was on Bleacher Report, and they were talking about Kofi Kingston. And I said this on the last episode. It was about the fact that I don't think WWE trusts Sami, which is why it's taken him so long to actually get this title. I think that they're shivering in their boots a little bit at the fact that, they're putting their faith in someone who isn't Cody Rhodes, basically. That is the truth of it, in my opinion, anyway. And I think what this kind of dynamic does is it creates a feud between Cody, Sami, and Punk, mainly between Cody and Punk. Now, if you remember when we last saw him, he had that little conversation in the ring with Cody. He kind of nodded his head. He was like, I want to come back for that. And Cody was like, yeah, anytime. Just say the time, whatever he said. So I think that we're due to see these two meet up again. But I do have Sami retaining on Monday Night Raw. That then moves us to Saturday night's main event. And we obviously have a few shows in between there as well to build our story, I think, between Cody and Punk. Now, Sami's obviously the good guy. So I think that he'll be maybe acting as kind of like the devil's advocate between the two of them. He's friendly with Cody. We know that much. I don't know what his relationship is like with Punk, but I don't think Punk will come in as a heel. I think that he'll be a face. Sami's the heel and Cody is the face. But I think what this does is it builds us up to Saturday night's main event. And what happens is we'll get Cody versus CM Punk. And I think Punk will win that. Now, what this does is it keeps Cody in the picture. It doesn't diminish him. I think if Punk loses, then Punk comes and then he goes. And I think that Punk winning actually cements his place further in the title picture, keeps Cody in the picture. And, essentially this fight is because of the interruption from this Monday night and the following story that we'll get to Saturday night's main event. Punk will be the front runner, but Cody obviously is the top guy. He's the face of the company. And I don't think he'll let it go. I think he will refuse to let it go, and that will then create a feud between the two of them that will continue to SummerSlam. And I think at SummerSlam what will happen is that we will get a triple threat with Cody, Punk and Sami. And I think this is where Sami will lose the belt. I think Sami will drop it at SummerSlam. I think that Punk will win this match and become the WWE Champion. And I think simultaneously what will happen at SummerSlam is I think that Cody will turn heel. I think that this will break him finally. It will allow Sami to become a face again in that same moment, and Punk can walk away with the title. Then we have an interesting dynamic moving forward of Punk being a face champion versus Cody the heel. And then Cody could probably win it at Survivor Series, and then we have a heel Cody as the champion. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I just want to write the story up to SummerSlam, basically. I do think that there could be some Jey Uso involvement, potentially because of the bloodline. I think that if Cody loses his shit at SummerSlam and turns heel, I think that Sami could be at the brunt of all of this because Sami won the belt. Sami pinned Cody for the championship, and it's almost like very narrow-minded of Cody to look at Sami and say, you caused all of this. You made this happen. You are not a good guy. You're not a good guy. You're a bad person, yada, yada, yada. That then allows Sami to turn around and say, I am a good guy once and for all, turn back face, and Cody just basically loses the plot. When I said about the bloodline coming in, I think that Jey could potentially protect Sami. I know that I've said that he's going to go back into the tag division, but I think that there's still a bloodline story brewing here. And I think that would allow Jey to still maybe be in the main event, not maybe the main event picture, but just be in the picture as a single star as well and sort of come along. Maybe they both could, him and Jimmy, just come and help Sami, and that then allows Sami to go back into the bloodline as the honorary Uso. I know obviously the fallout of everything with Roman didn't really go too well for him, but hey, look, these are just predictions, so don't take them as ironclad facts, obviously. Now, just lastly, we also have seen Kevin Owens on camera. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything, and I'm probably clutching at straws here, but seeing Kevin Owens celebrate with Becky and obviously Sami winning the championship, we don't really know what's happening with Kevin Owens. We haven't heard anything, but it would be an interesting time for Kevin Owens to be a part of this storyline. Whether that be at Saturday night's main event, I don't think that will happen, obviously based on my predictions. But at SummerSlam, that could be a very interesting storyline. And maybe somewhere along the line, let's just hypothetically say that Kevin Owens does come back into the fold here. He could be the one that costs Sami the championship in the triple threat at SummerSlam. So there's an interesting dynamic there as well. I also wanted to just cover this story that the Bleacher Report basically said that fans will revolt if Sami Zayn loses to Cody Rhodes in WWE title match on Raw. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is where Punk will come in, but I just wanted to read this little segment here because it kind of brushes on a few other things that kind of goes in its favour of Sami losing based on the way that WWE have booked in the past. So it says here, WWE is playing with near historical fire right now when it comes to the Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes situation. When Zayn pulled off the upset title win over Rhodes at Night of Champions, it felt like a watershed moment for pro wrestling. Here was Zayn doing it his way en route to finally winning the big one, while WWE seemed to be admitting that the recent Rhodes era was symbolic of repeated missteps in booking decisions. Well, I think that Cody's definitely racking up the numbers now with the amount of times that he's been champion. They're definitely cementing him as a however many times it is now that he's been champion, 4 or 5 or something like that, 3 or 4, something like that. Yeah, some of the matches that he's had, and it always seems to go back to Cody. It's like milk. If you leave milk out on the side too long, it goes off. So you have to put it back in the fridge to keep it fresh. And that's what it feels like. It feels like Cody is the fridge. And, you take the milk out, the championship, you put it on someone else for a little while, and then you go, oh, it's getting a bit warm, it's getting a bit stale now, it smells a bit funny. Let's put it back in the fridge. Let's give it back to Cody. That's genuinely what it feels like. It says WWE is now in a Kofi Kingston-like danger zone, which is what I said about earlier. Instead, here comes Rhodes again, immediately challenging for Zayn's title. Wrestling fans can be 1000% forgiven for getting an odd sense of deja vu. After all, before this year's WrestleMania, Rhodes dropped the title to Drew McIntyre in a similar heartfelt moment, only to unceremoniously rip it back off of him so he could run to Mania and have a main event ruined by Pat McAfee and Jelly Roll, among other problems. Yeah, and that's the thing that I don't like about WWE at the moment. They are, and I've said this 100 times already, only over the first 2 episodes, that I think WWE are so scared of trying something different because they're just not confident in themselves. They're not confident in their writing. They are in a different position now to what they were in a couple of years ago. They've got TKO looming over them and saying, this is what we want, make it happen. I don't think that Triple H should always have the finger pointed at him, but he does put himself in the firing line at press conferences and saying that, this is a new era and all that sort of crap that he says. And he takes onus for some of the decisions that are made. So we kind of really don't know as fans who's making these calls. I know that there was a rumor going around that TKO essentially booked night 1 of WrestleMania. I don't know how true that is. I don't think we ever really had a follow-up on that. It's just the rumour that there is a tussle between TKO and WWE at the moment. And, things like the Drew McIntyre, things like potentially the Sami Zayn story that could happen, with him losing the belt only after like a couple of days, could very well happen. And I would absolutely accept the fact that fans would think that because they've done it before. So, it's bloody frustrating. It says doing something similar to Zayn in a matter of days would be even more catastrophic. WWE appears at least to be flirting with the idea of giving Zayn all of 10-ish days as champion before taking the belt back off of him. It's at risk of making his win hardly anything more than a cheap pop in Saudi Arabia, a bit of a pat on the head before sending him back to the mid-card. Yeah, I mean, we all thought this was going to happen last year, I think, or was it at the Rumble in Saudi that Sami was going to win? It didn't happen. But with Night of Champions, that is the obvious answer, is to say, it's because it was in Saudi, we're going to give it to Sami. I actually didn't think that was going to be the case. I actually thought that Sami was the piggy in the middle, and I referenced this in the last episode, like the triple threat with Io, Bianca, and Rhea at WrestleMania a couple of years ago. Io was the one that was in the middle, and it was more of a feud between Bianca and Rhea, and then Io steals it. And this was kind of more of a feud between Cody and Gunther, and Sami stole it. So it is kind of rinse and repeat on the storylines here, but I don't know if fans have picked up on that one, but I did, unfortunately. And hey, look, I'm still happy that he's the champion. So it says here again, one name comes to mind, Kofi Kingston, which we've already touched on. Fans know the drill with Kingston. Amazing title win, much deserved. The situation could go for thousands of words. Brock Lesnar ripped the title off of him in a squash before Kingston was very clearly told to never so much as reference the solo run again. Pathetic on the part of WWE and all involved. The Zayn situation arrives at an even more pivotal point for WWE. The background context is key. Fans are having a really, really hard time trusting the promotion right now. Don't we know it? There's years of obvious background meddling by outside forces since the TKO merger. Yes. Fans shudder at the thought of names like Travis Scott, Pat McAfee, and the guy named after a pastry. Oh, Jelly Roll. Yeah, well, that's it. That's basically covering pretty much what I just said there. It says, what does it say about WWE's booking and how fans should trust the powers behind the moves if Rhodes takes the title right back off Zayn so that he can have a belt around his waist going into SummerSlam? Done that a million times before as well. And I think this is all TKO's doing. I think that they want the stars on the posters and they don't think that they're going to sell the tickets without them. I mean, they struggle anyway, to be fair. So it wouldn't be a surprise if they thought that narrow-mindedly. What does it say about Rhodes, whose Cena-like runs will give little nods to deserving guys before deeming them unworthy to hold top spots on the biggest shows? And what does it say for fan trust that WWE can actually book someone like Oba Femi properly, considering his current run is already on shaky ground with the surprise Lesnar unretirement thing? Yeah, but we're kind of over that now. We're moving forward from that. This isn't just about Rhodes' immediate challenge against Zayn either. That's a minor barricade on the path. WWE could choose to slam into it at 100 miles per hour, sure, but a nice nod to fans and the entire locker room, really, would be making sure Zayn walks into SummerSlam with a title. I think that will happen. Obviously, we've just covered that. But I do believe that Sami will hold it for longer than, say, Monday or Saturday night's main event. It says it's not that much to ask. This is a company that has messed around with extensive title runs for the likes of Jinder Mahal. Surely it can resist giving Zayn the Kingston treatment so that Rhodes can once again remain stuck in the same Cena-light loop that will undoubtedly get some sort of TKO meddling as a spoiled cherry on top. A fan revolt sounds dramatic, but in pro wrestling terms, that means disinterest. WWE can't afford that right now. The solution is simple. Ride the good decisions, stop lagging to fix the problems. Keep Zayn at the top for a while and Rhodes well out of the main event scene for a much needed break from overexposure. Yes, I do understand that, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he needs to be out of the main event scene because he's doing a lot of heavy lifting being there. If you was to put anyone else in this title match against Sami Zayn, then you're not at the moment looking at it as an interesting match. The fact that Cody is still there, regardless of whether he wins or not, still makes it more interesting than another superstar. So, and that's not any superstar. Like I say, if Roman was in it, for argument's sake, if Oba was in it, if Brock was in it, if Punk does become a part of this picture, infinitely more interesting as well. But I'm just talking about stars that aren't there, that would come in and take the spot of Cody for a few weeks. But, you could do that with Punk, I suppose. You wouldn't even need to have Cody there. But yeah, I think Cody's important and you can't just sort of tear him away. He is still the face of the company and I believe that's why he's still involved in the main event picture so much. But that's what they had to say on the situation. And what do you think? Do you think that Sami will get a longer run than tonight? I think he will. Do you think Punk will come back? I also think he will. And do you think Sami will hold the belt until SummerSlam? I think there's a lot of arguments to say that he won't, but personally for me, I think he will. And I think that we get a program with Cody, with Punk, with Sami, and then it all blends in with the Bloodline story at some point as well. And we get a bunch of crossovers and just a bunch of madness. And I feel like that we have separate pillars that are all going to come together for WrestleMania and you can see the story building. So I'm not totally mad about it. I really ain't. I just hope that Sami has a decent run and that these weeks in between the Saturday night main events or Saturday night main event, the single show, and SummerSlam actually provide some entertainment. I think that we'll probably get some promos, which Sami is very good at, in my opinion. So, I'm predicting a strong run right up until SummerSlam. And I'm really looking forward to it. But let me know what you think about SummerSlam. Let me know what you think about Saturday night's main event. Will Punk get a run at the title at some point? Will he be even a part of this picture? Will Cody win it back on Monday night? Or will it take until SummerSlam for him to actually get back into the picture? It's all very interesting. And I cannot wait for Monday Night Raw. But for now, I've been Luke. This has been WrestleVision, and thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed today's episode, tag yourself in by following WrestleVision on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. You can also follow the show on Instagram at WrestleVision Podcast. But until then, WrestleVisionaries, take care, and I'll catch you in the next episode.